If you asked anyone in my family who keeps to themselves, they'd all point straight at me. I've never been the type to raise my voice at dinner or fight for attention. I don't stir up drama. I usually keep my thoughts to myself and let others talk. Even when I probably should have spoken up, I stayed calm instead of losing it. That's just how I've always been wired. But if life's taught me one thing, it's this. People like me, the quiet ones, we're often written off too easily. And more often than not, we're the ones who remember everything. My younger brother Liam is 2 years behind me, and growing up, we had exactly the kind of bond you'd expect from brothers close in age. Messy, loud, but tight-knit. We shared a room until I left for college, got into countless backyard scuffles, and had each other's backs every time we messed up with mom and dad. But everything started shifting after college. Liam dove headfirst into sales, threw on custom suits, leased a flashy BMW, and filled his social media with gym selfies and motivational quotes he clearly didn't live by. I took a different route, stayed under the radar, earned my engineering degree, moved to a quieter town, and built a stable life that didn't need an Instagram filter. We still talk now and then, but something about our connection felt off. It started to feel like I was just being kept in the loop out of guilt instead of genuine care. When he told me he was engaged to Chloe, a woman I'd only met twice, I was honestly happy for him, even if she struck me as the kind of person who'd say things like, "We're a very curated couple," and act like my work designing turbine components was somehow beneath Liam's luxury mattress hustle. Still, I gave it a shot. I really did. The day I got the invite, I RSP'd right away. I even offered to help with any tech or venue stuff. They politely brushed me off. I Venmo'd $200 for their joint bachelor-bachelorette trip, even though I wasn't invited. The wedding was held at a vineyard about an hour outside the city. It had that overpriced, rustic vibe that was very on brand for them. I rented a suit, booked a nearby hotel, and brought a thoughtful gift, a handwritten card with a check for $1,500 inside. It wasn't just generous. It meant something. That wasn't spare change to me. I had saved bit by bit, wanting to give them something meaningful because I genuinely believed this was a milestone for my brother. Driving to the venue, I felt uneasy. Not about the event itself, but because something in my gut kept telling me the day might go sideways. When I arrived, I spotted the seating chart displayed on a small easel near the entrance. I scanned it for my name. Didn't see it the first time. Checked again. Still nothing. A third time. My name just wasn't there. Thinking it had to be a mistake, I went inside and found one of the wedding coordinators, a young woman juggling clipboards and talking into a walkie-talkie. "Hi, sorry," I said softly. "I don't think I see my name on the chart." Ethan Carter. She looked up, clearly running on fumes, then flipped through the guest list. "Oh, Ethan, right? Liam's brother." Her tone shifted, like something awkward had just clicked for her. "Yeah, so, there were a few last-minute changes. I think you're supposed to be over by the west wall. There are a few open seats near the photo booth." The west wall. I blinked. That wasn't a table. That was over by the sound system, where they'd stacked extra folding chairs like an afterthought. Still trying to believe it was just some kind of oversight, I walked over. That's when I saw it. There was only one labeled seat that should have been mine, but the place card didn't say Ethan. It read, "Haley, cousins plus one." I had no idea who Haley even was, but there she sat, already sipping champagne in the chair I'd assume was mine, laughing with a group of people I barely knew. Trying to stay composed, I walked over to my mom, who was fussing with my dad's boutonniere. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "Do you know what's up with the seating?" She didn't even glance at me. "Oh yeah," she replied casually. "Chloe's side had more guests fly in than expected, and they came from pretty far. We didn't want to move them around. Just stand near the wall during the ceremony. You'll still be able to see everything." "The wall?" I repeated, probably a little too loud. My dad shot me a look like I was being dramatic. "It's not a big deal," my mom said, waving it off. "Just don't ruin the photos by pouting." I wasn't pouting. I was floored. And right then, as if things couldn't get worse, I heard Chloe's voice behind me, bright, chirpy, and sharp. "Oh, good. You found a spot. she said breezily, not even waiting for me to reply. We're just trying to keep the family pictures looking clean, you know? I don't know what my expression looked like, but it must have said everything I was holding back. Because she quickly added, it's nothing personal. You'll still be in the reception shots, I promise. I gave her a tight nod. She turned and walked away with her perfectly coordinated bridal crew. There's a specific kind of humiliation that doesn't come from shouting or tears. It's a quiet, sinking ache that hits when you realize you don't belong somewhere you should. I stood there for a moment, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the gift table. There was a table near the cake, draped in white linen, piled with pastel-colored gift boxes and elegant envelopes. Mine stood out right away. Matte silver, neatly hand-addressed, tucked carefully beneath a delicate ribbon. I had sealed that envelope with intention, even slipped in a note about how proud I was of Liam, how I genuinely hoped the money would give them a solid start. Without thinking twice, I walked right over, reached down, and quietly took it back. Nobody stopped me. At first, nobody even noticed. That is, until I turned toward the exit and heard someone, maybe one of the groomsmen, call out, "Hey, Ethan, where you headed?" I didn't break stride, just glanced over my shoulder, held up the envelope and said, "Don't worry, I'll stay out of the frame for good." I was nearly at the double doors when Liam's voice called out behind me, "Ethan, wait." I stopped but didn't turn around. I stood there, hand on the gleaming brass handle, the other gripping the envelope like it was the only thing keeping me upright. "Ethan," he said again, closer now. I could hear his shoes crunching softly against the floor. "Come on, man, don't do this. It's really not that deep." I turned slowly. For the first time in years, I really looked at him. He was standing in a sleek designer tux, boutonniere slightly crooked, a glass of champagne fizzing in his hand. His face showed confusion, like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. Like he hadn't just shoved his own brother off to a stack of spare chairs because Chloe's cousin decided to bring a +1. "Not that deep?" I repeated, quiet but sharp. "Yeah," he muttered, trying to lower his voice. "It's just the seating, bro. Not like we kicked you out or anything. And Chloe's family came in from, like, Portugal. We had to make room." I let out a short, dry laugh. "So I get banished to the corner and hope nobody thinks I'm the DJ? Dude, don't be so dramatic. It's one day. You're seriously making this all about you." That hit a nerve. Make it about me? I'd spent years showing up. Birthdays, holidays, cookouts. Always the guy sending cards, remembering anniversaries, staying behind to clean up while Liam slipped away to take a call. I never made it about me. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe they got so used to me fading into the background that the idea of me simply needing a chair, just one, suddenly felt like too much to ask. "I flew out," I said slowly, "rented a hotel, bought a suit, gave you $1,500. "We're giving," he corrected, gesturing toward the envelope. "Right," I said. "Were." But then it hit me. I'm not really your brother today. I'm just background. His jaw tightened. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "No," I said firmly. "You already did. You just didn't think I'd notice." He rubbed his forehead and sighed. "Look, it was Chloe's call, all right? She wanted the photos to be clean, symmetrical, just her close circle." "So I didn't match the aesthetic?" I asked. "Did she run a face scan to check who had the best bone structure for her feed?" He didn't answer, probably because he knew better than to try. "You know," I said, taking a few steps toward him, "I wasn't expecting a toast, or a dance, or even a mention. All I wanted was a seat, a spot that said, 'You belong here. You matter.'" "You do matter," he muttered, as if the words physically hurt him to say. "Then why didn't you act like it?" His eyes shifted to the guests behind me, the ones now openly staring. The photographer had paused mid-shot. The DJ had dropped the volume. He hated being the center of attention when it wasn't curated, staged, controlled. I could see it in his face, the way this moment was ruining his perfect day. And the worst part, it wasn't because I caused a scene. It was because I simply refused to disappear quietly. "Look," he said through clenched teeth, "if this is about the money—" "It's not," I cut in. "It's about respect. And today, You showed me exactly how little of that I have from you. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, but nothing came out, just a long, exasperated breath. I'm leaving, I said, adjusting the envelope in my hand. But don't worry, the photos will be flawless. No awkward older brother messing up your symmetry. I turned and walked out before he could say another word. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I made my way to the car. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or punch the steering wheel. I just sat behind the wheel for a while, staring at the vineyard fading in the rearview mirror. It felt surreal, like I just walked out of a film where I wasn't even a supporting character. Not the lead, not the sidekick, just an extra who accidentally wandered into the frame. Back at the hotel, I peeled off the suit, packed my things, and pulled the envelope back out. Inside was the note I had written days before, the one where I said I was proud of him, that I hoped the money would help him start fresh. I read the note once, then tore it clean down the middle. After that, I turned off my phone. It didn't stay off for long. About an hour later, I powered it back on and saw 6 missed calls from Liam, 4 from Mom, and a trail of texts that got more frantic with every message. The last one came from Chloe. All it said was, "You really ruined everything today." And just like that, whatever guilt I'd been carrying disappeared. That one line, the way she said I ruined it, like I'd smashed some perfectly polished fantasy of theirs. Something clicked. I didn't ruin anything. I exposed it. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. The next morning I checked out before the sun came up. The guy at the front desk barely looked up as I slid my key card across the counter, which was fine. I wasn't in the mood to talk. I grabbed a sad, dry croissant from the breakfast bar, tossed it into the passenger seat, and drove out of that overpriced vineyard town like it owed me a refund. By the time I got back home, there were 11 more missed calls and 2 voicemails I had no intention of listening to. My mom's text had shifted from, "You shouldn't have left like that," to, "Please call your brother. He's devastated," and finally to the one that actually made me laugh out loud. Family means sometimes making sacrifices, Ethan. Sacrifices. I sank into my couch, still in last night's jeans, rereading that sentence. It sounded like one of those cheesy quotes you'd find on a magnet at a gas station gift shop. What exactly had Liam sacrificed? His wedding photos were still going to look the way they planned. Perfectly styled, filtered, branded. Chloe would still get to post them with captions like, "Blessed and our fairy tale begins." He'd still have the Instagram perfect experience he wanted. Only now, minus the one sibling who apparently didn't fit the color scheme. And here's the thing. I'd already made the sacrifices. They just never saw them. For the past year and a half, I'd been quietly backing Liam's startup. A mattress import business that was bleeding money faster than he could plug the holes. Nobody knew. Back when it launched, he called me in a full-blown panic. He needed someone to co-sign a loan. Not for a house, not for a car, for a warehouse lease and an inventory contract. I didn't ask for anything in return. I thought, he's my brother. If he makes it, great. We all benefit. If he fails, at least I helped him try. And maybe deep down, I hoped that stepping up would finally be seen as more than just Ethan being reliable. I didn't tell our parents. I didn't even mention it to my friends. It was just something I carried alone. I made sure payments went through, took calls from the bank when cash got tight, and wired him an emergency $3,000 last fall, when a supplier almost pulled the plug. And all I ever got was a single line. "Appreciate it, bro." That check I pulled off the gift table, it wasn't just a wedding gift. It was me finally saying, enough. And as I sat there on my couch, surrounded by unopened mail and half-dead plants, it hit me. They didn't just forget my seat at the wedding. They forgot my place in their lives completely. So I got to work. I opened up every folder, every email thread, every document I'd signed, every bank record tied to that loan. I was still listed as the co-signer, which meant I still had admin access. The loan wasn't even close to paid off. And sure, I hadn't made any official claims to the business, but I had leverage. I didn't want to wreck him. I truly didn't. But Chloe's text, "You really ruined everything today," kept echoing in my mind like a challenge, as if their whole curated little world couldn't survive a single crack of truth. As if 18 months of quiet support didn't matter as much as whether I matched the aesthetic of a wedding photo. I opened a new email, straightforward, professional, legally sound. It informed the bank that, due to personal and financial concerns, I was formally removing myself as co-signer and revoking permission for any further use of my identity or credit. I attached all the necessary forms, copied Liam, and hit send. Then, just to be safe, I forwarded a few key files to a lawyer friend from college. Not because I was expecting a fight, but because Liam could be reckless. And Chloe? I didn't trust anyone who described centerpieces as branding assets. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring through to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. This time, it was Liam. I picked up. His voice was tight, controlled. You pulled out of the loan? Yes. Why now? You're married, I said flatly. Time to stand on your own. There was a beat of silence. Ethan, come on. This isn't the time to be petty. I could hear it, the irritation hiding beneath his forced calm. That tone he used when he still thought he was the reasonable one, when he believed I'd eventually back down, that all of this would blow over like one of his unpaid invoices. This isn't petty, I said. It's overdue. You're seriously doing all this over a chair? No, I said, leaning back against the couch. This is about a pattern. And that chair, that was just the last straw. He let out a sharp breath, half frustration, half disbelief. Okay, let's talk, Liam said. Just come over. We'll figure something out. Oh? Like how you figured out where to shove me during the ceremony? I replied. Or how you both decided I didn't matter enough to show up in a single photo? Or maybe how your new wife treated me like I was some kind of logistical error? He didn't respond. Not a word. You didn't even check if I was all right when I left, I added. You didn't ask if I was okay. You called now because you need something. That's it. More silence. Then finally quieter this time. So, is this permanent? You're just done? I don't know yet, I said honestly. That depends on you. And with that, I ended the call. There was no victory in it, no smug satisfaction, just exhaustion, like I'd finished scrubbing out a mess I didn't make, but had somehow been left to clean for years, because that's what it really was. A mess that had been festering in all the quiet slights, the dismissive gestures, and the betrayals so subtle no one thought I'd notice. What I didn't realize at the time was that Liam wasn't the only one shaken by what I did. The ripple effects had already started. Turns out Chloe's father, one of the low-key investors in Liam's company, had some questions. My mom was now trying to put together some kind of family mediation dinner, and my inbox about to flood. Cousins apparently had stories too, stories about how they had been bumped, excluded, or shoved into the shadows by Chloe's guest list shuffle. But we'll get to that, because the moment everything really broke, the point where it shifted from uncomfortable family tension to full-scale fracture, came 3 days later. I got a Facebook message from my cousin Jenna. We weren't super close, but we'd grown up sharing chaotic holidays and exchanging the occasional eye roll across the table. Her message was short. Hey, just wondering, were you also asked not to be in the family photos? That word, also, stopped me cold. We hopped on a call that night. Jenna told me she was seated at the far edge of the venue, way out by the portable heaters. Her husband didn't even get a place card. Apparently, 2 nights before the wedding, Chloe had sent an updated guest flow to the coordinator. She'd reshuffled the seating to, quote, optimize the aesthetic. Translation: if you were over 30, not TikTok friendly, or didn't fit the vibe, you got sidelined. And it wasn't just Jenna. She'd already spoken to 2 other cousins. One who drove 6 hours and didn't even get offered a drink, and another who brought a $400 espresso machine off their registry, only to be seated behind a decorative hedge. The deeper she dug, the worse it got. Nearly half of the Reynolds side had been quietly pushed aside, all to make room for Chloe's influencer friends, distant acquaintances from her mom's Pilates group, and people who fit the look. It wasn't a wedding, it was a branded shoot with vows. Before we hung up, Jenna said, I don't think I'm being dramatic, but it felt like we were just there to fill empty space, like they were embarrassed to have us. I told her she wasn't overreacting, not even a little. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up Chloe's Instagram. The wedding photos were already going live. Perfectly edited snapshots of rustic elegance and the staged laughter. Liam looked like he was modeling cologne. Chloe looked like she'd stepped out of a sponsored post. The captions were exactly what you'd expect. The day our forever began. I kept scrolling and scrolling. Dozens of pictures. Not a single one included family. Not even our parents. Not even Liam's supposed best man, who, as I later found out, wasn't actually his best friend, but an old coworker who fit the aesthetic better. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me getting disrespected. This was about the entire family being cropped out and rebranded. And they really thought none of us would notice or speak up. The next morning I called my parents. Mom picked up, speaker on, meaning Dad was hovering close by. I kept it polite. Asked how they were, if they got back all right, how the rest of the reception played out. They were careful with their words, guarded, testing the waters. Eventually, Mom sighed. Ethan, I just wish you hadn't left like that. You embarrassed your brother. I let that hang for a second. Did he tell you where I was seated? I asked. There was a pause. I think there was a mix-up, she said. You should have said something. Quietly, right? I replied. So it wouldn't ruin the shot? She didn't respond. I'm not angry, I told her, keeping my voice calm. I'm just done pretending I wasn't treated like a backup plan. And I'm not the only one who noticed. That got their attention. I told them about Jenna, about the other cousins, about the people who were simmering in silence, too polite to speak up, but not blind to what happened. Finally, Dad chimed in. He said Chloe had handled most of the planning. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Liam let her. That was the part nobody wanted to say out loud. Mom tried to excuse it. Weddings are stressful, she said. Couples make mistakes. Maybe they'll make it up to you. They won't, I said flatly, because they don't think they did anything wrong. And that's when I told them about the loan. The silence on the other end of the line was instant and absolute. I gave it a beat, let the weight of it land. You what? My dad finally asked, his voice tense. I co-signed the lease for Liam's warehouse, I said. 18 months ago. When he couldn't cover the payments, I stepped in, quietly. Nobody had known, because I never made it a big deal. I just handled it, like I always did. Mom's voice cracked a little. Why didn't you tell us? Because I thought I was doing the right thing, I said. Because I figured, that's what family does. I let the silence stretch a second time. Anyway, I continued, I've withdrawn. I let the bank know. Liam's on his own now. Dad cleared his throat. He says you're trying to sabotage him. No, I replied. I just stopped shielding him. Later that afternoon, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. It was Mr. Whitman, Chloe's father. His tone was frosty but professional. He wanted clarification about some unexpected changes in the business's financing. I explained my past involvement, my decision to step away, and that legally I was under no further obligation, especially not for a business that had cut me out both financially and personally since day one. There was a long pause. I understand, he said eventually. I just wish you'd come to me first. I wish a lot of things had been handled differently, I replied. The next 2 days were a blur of fallout. Liam called 3 more times. I didn't pick up. He left voicemails. One angry, the next apologetic. The last one a scattered mess of excuses and nervous laughter. He said Chloe was super upset, that everyone's being dramatic, and asked if we could just reset. But I wasn't interested in hitting reset. I wanted something else, something deeper. Closure. That Friday I got an invitation, not to another wedding, thank God, but to a brunch organized by Jenna. It was just a casual get-together, a small circle of cousins, second cousins, people who'd been quietly hurting in their own way. It wasn't about making a statement. It was just waffles, coffee, and time with people who actually wanted to be there. No curated moments, no ring light, no ranking people by their filter readiness. We shared stories, laughed at how absurd it all had been. Some of us cried, especially one cousin who'd gone into credit card debt just to be there for family. And near the end, Jenna turned to me and said, "Thank you for walking out. We were all thinking it. You just had the guts to do it. That stayed with me because it would have been so much easier to keep quiet, to sit in my little folding chair, smile for the photos, and swallow the feeling again. But I didn't. I stood up, not to be dramatic, not for revenge, but because I finally understood what I was worth. And I wasn't going to let them crop me out of my own story. 3 weeks later, I got a letter, handwritten, from Liam. I still have it. It's tucked away in the same drawer where I keep the torn-up note I once placed with that $1,500 check. The letter was a jumble. Regret, confusion, vague attempts at repair. He never actually said the words "I'm sorry," but he did write this. I thought keeping the peace meant avoiding conflict. I see now it really meant ignoring you. I was wrong. I haven't responded. Maybe one day I will. Maybe I won't. But I know this much. I'm not the background brother anymore. Not a placeholder, not a backup plan, not a folding chair in the shadows. I'm Ethan. And this time, I chose myself, and I stayed in the frame.